Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 91 in the book of Genesis. Today's thought is anything too hard for the Lord? It's a statement that the Lord actually gives to Abraham and Sarah. This is from Genesis chapter 18. I'm going to read the story and I'm going to interrupt just to make a few comments till we get to the is anything too hard for the Lord? That'll be near the end. This is Genesis chapter 18. And the Lord, this is the true Lord. The Lord's going to come down with himself and probably two angels. And the Lord appeared to him, that's Abraham, by the oaks of Mamre, as he sat on the door of his tent. He's still in a tent, even though we've been following Abraham now for about 25 years. In the heat of the day, he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, three men, the Lord and two angels, were standing in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the earth and said, O Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves, while I bring a morsel of bread, that you may refresh yourselves. And after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant. So they said, Do as you have said. And Abraham went quickly into the tent to Sarah and said, Quick, 3 seahs, which is a flour measurement, of flour. Now, a seah is 7 quarts, little more than 7 liters. So basically 21 quarts, 21 liters of bread. Huge amount. He's going over the top in every way. Knead it and make cakes, verse 7. Then Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf. Wait a minute, now we're in the meat here. Tender and good, and he gave it to a young man who prepared it quickly. Then he took curds and milk, so milk and cheese, and the calf that he had prepared, and he set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree while they ate. So we find Abraham in his tent and knows that this is an important meeting, and he runs and he bows and he begs and he overbuys and he underpromises and overdelivers, and he does this quickly. And he gives a sacrifice and milk and cheese, and then he stands by like he's a servant. Then they said to him, Where is Sarah, your wife? And he said, She is in the tent. Now, she's in the tent, but she's also eavesdropping through the tent door, which we find out here in a second. And the Lord said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, she's 90 years old, shall have a son. And Sarah was listening at the tent door behind him. Now, Abram and Sarah were old, advanced in years. He was 100, she was 90. This is just beautiful scripture here. The way of women had ceased to be with her. So, isn't it fun? You know, the Bible speaks of menopause. So the way of women had ceased to be with Sarah. So that system is not functioning anymore. That reproductive function is closed for business. So Sarah is past menopause. So we get this intimate detail about her, which is important to the story because it's through a postmenopausal woman that Abraham and Sarah gives birth to Isaac. So Sarah, who was behind the tent door, laughed to herself. And the point there is no laughing to yourself with God because God sees. She thought she was laughing to herself. But of course, she's seen by the Lord, as are we seen by the Lord by the things we do. So that's the character and the nature and the abilities of God coming through. There is no hidden. Even thoughts are exposed. So that's, welcome to the spiritual life. So saying, After I am worn out and my Lord is old, shall I have pleasure? And the Lord said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh and say, Shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old? Then here it is, verse 14. Genesis chapter 18, verse 14. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Question mark. So this is the Lord saying to Abram and kind of the Sarah who's listening through the tent door, is anything too hard for the Lord? Now, somebody in the room knows the answer to the question. It's the asker of the question. The Lord never asks a question he doesn't know the answer to. But it's a fantastic question. Is there anything too hard for the Lord? He knows the answer, but somebody in the room doesn't know the answer, and that's Abraham and Sarah. And then the last verse, at the appointed time I will return to you about this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. He said, no, but you did laugh. So let's go to the point now. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Is there difficult circumstances that one comes to face with while also keeping in mind the promises of God? Will discouragement or disappointment tempt us to abandon our relationship with God? And he just puts it out there. The Lord puts it out there. Is this beyond the ability of the Lord? And it forces the question is, are we in this God relationship for the stuff of God, for the prosperity of God, or for the person of God? Are we looking for his hands, what he can give us, or his heart? So is anything too hard for the Lord? Obviously, nothing is. Because he's done the hard stuff. While we were enemies, we were reconciled. He saved us from wrath. He who did not spare his son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also with him graciously give us all things? So perhaps today, as we conclude, you need help doing the impossible. And you are asking the wondrous, God, the wondrous, for something wonderful. And maybe that's for help in forgiving the unworthy, or forgetting the unholy, or forsaking the unfruitful, or bringing forth life from the barren, as is their case. So when we ask, sometimes the answers are no when we hear them. And then we wonder if we're forsaken, or do we forsake him when we don't hear exactly what we want? So what if the biopsy is positive? What if the consequence is not avoided? What if I remain disappointed? What if he has the ability but says no to a specific request? Will I remain faithful like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in Daniel 3? If this be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship. So they're saying, I will be faithful if the circumstances don't go my way. So the answer to the question is anything too difficult? The answer is no. Is anything too hard? No. But what if I don't see it? Am I still going to be faithful? Faith is trusting in the person of God before the promises of God are seen. Is anything too difficult for the Lord? The answer is no. Thanks for listening.